Monster Hunter finds itself in an interesting position. So for many years, it was a 3DS Nintendo game. It was basically a Nintendo exclusive for the longest time. It came from PlayStation 2, PSP, all that kind of stuff. But then for the longest time, it was 3DS, pretty much 3DS exclusive. Then World came along, and World was a completely different proposition. It had so many quality of life improvements. It did fundamentally change the way that you kind of play the game, on top of being next-gen consoles, PC, all those things that it hadn't really been for the longest time. So Rise comes out, and it's in an interesting middle ground between the two. It's not quite World, and it's not quite Gen, but it's something in the middle. I guess the biggest question is, how do you go back? How do you go back to being that previous style, with all the quality of life improvements of World, with all the changes that made it better? Capcom's answer is, let's go full weeb on it. And yeah, it worked. That's a pretty good answer to that question. So the game itself is set in Kamura, which is a village in the Monster Hunter world set before the Calamity. So to put it into the timeline, it's set pre-Calamity. And every 50 years, they experience what they call the Rampage. And that's basically a bunch of rampaging monsters led by Magna Malo. I always call him Magmalos or whatever. Just if I do that, just you're going to have to deal with it now. Basically, and they rampage through the village. This huge horde of monsters attacks the village. And it's you repelling that from breaching through the gates. And that's the main unique mechanic, a horde mode, basically a tower defense mode. And as a result, it's something different, obviously compared to your traditional monster hunts and things like that. It kind of takes the place of the Zora Magdaros stuff if you're a world kid, if you're a fifth fleeter like myself, then it takes the place of a lot of that. And my only criticism is I've been only able to play this game solo, so I haven't really had a chance to play multiplayer because the multiplayer servers aren't active. It's a pre-release code, not everyone has the game, blah, blah, blah. But realistically, it's, you put down turrets, you put down bombs, you put down things to repel the enemy, and it felt tough playing it single player, even with the health scaling, scale to one player. It's just the way that it is, you have flying ones come in and you'll have, stomping ones go around and, one good shot to all of your turrets and they're gone. Whereas if you had, say, 2 or 3 hunters, it'd be easier to be able to repel that. But then go, cool, well, I've got, the Tetranodon bashing through the door here, but I need to shoot the Axonom out of the air. Having to do that solo is tough. It really is. But that said, it's still a lot of fun. I played it a fair few times because it gives you tickets that go towards certain armors and also towards the ramp-up system, which is kind of the augments from World. So it's how you augment your armor on top of, increasing its level and stuff like that. The game, from the rest of the way that the armor works and the melding works and the eating works are all pretty similar. Eating has changed slightly differently. You no longer, you still eat for skills and you still eat for health, but you don't need to put Vit Boost into armors anymore. There's a separate mechanic for that, which is the Pedalase, which allows you to be a little bit more flexible with the way you have health and the way you play with health. But as a general rule, it's a Monster Hunter game. If you've played previous ones, if you've played World, it's going to feel familiar enough. You're going to have to relearn some of the patterns if you are coming from World, because it definitely changes some of the attack patterns. But as a general rule, you kind of know what to expect going in. There's going to be nothing here that changes it. Probably the biggest change to the game is the wire bugs, the way that wire bugs are used for both fighting monsters and for traversing the environment. So obviously they saw Breath of the Wild and said, hey, we love that. We love the verticality. We love climbing. We love all that kind of stuff. Let's put it in our game. The one thing they do allow you is more movement options. So obviously one of the things that's always been very kind of stock standard with the Monster Hunter games, besides individual zones loading as you go through them, which doesn't happen anymore, is movement is usually based on running around. Insect Glaive obviously offers some more options, and each weapon has its own unique movement tricks, but there's no kind of universal ones. This changes that. You just throw your bug, go that way. Climbing mountains, you do that. There's very little call to climb mountains outside of pumping up your Pedalase, which is used by picking up endemic life throughout the world. there's very little use to do it. Mainly the most use you'll get out of it is for fighting monsters, and each weapon has a different ability. Plus you can set skills, which is something that I believe carries over from the previous ones. Again, I'm a 5th leader, so I had to ask people to see if is this a thing from the old ones? Is it, so you can change your skills. So for example, Lance, instead of doing the full charge, you can do like a shield bash charge, which is great for stunning. Like if you've got, say, a lineup with a hammer or something like that, and you want to just add on a bit of slugger or a bit of stun, a bit of KO, you can definitely do that, changing it up. And then also, you've got things like, the Lance also, I played a lot of Lance, I'm just putting that out there. It has an ability where you stab a monster and it tethers it to you, like it can't run too far away from you, so it's easy to stay on the monster. Hammer has, you can go into the roll without setting it up. Every single weapon has its own unique modifier based on the wire bugs. Play with them, as always, like this game, figure out what weapon works for you and what weapon suits your style. Play them all, figure out what you're going to main from that point, or play a lot of. It's still probably the best answer. The problem for New Blood is still that steep learning curve, and they've tried to make it a little bit easier with the way they introduce Village and Gathering Hub, which again is the classic way. So it's a bit easier from that. Then you go into Gathering Hub when you want to play multiplayer with friends. So the single player ones tend to start you off a bit easier, whereas the hub quests start, some of the higher tier monsters pretty early. I would suggest if you are new, get a friend who plays the game, or someone who does, and join in with them. See if they're patient. The toxicity of the Monster Hunter community is nothing compared to Dota, but it's still there. But just find a friend or a couple of friends who enjoy the game. That was how I got into it, and it's really enjoyable. Is it recommended? Absolutely. If you're a fan of World, it's still worth playing. It's still a Monster Hunter game at its core. Being able to play 4-player ad hoc is great. I love the aesthetic, but I'm a weeb, so that's fine. If you're a fan of Gen, again, it feels a lot more like Gen than it does like World in a lot of ways. It's in the RE engine, so no more loading between segments and stuff like that, so that's nice at least. But it's definitely a recommended game. If you enjoy a game it requires you to be skillful, requires you to learn, a challenging PvE multiplayer game, Monster Hunter's always been that, and it continues to be that. Another fantastic game in the Monster Hunter franchise.